call this meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission.
This conference will now be recorded.
Now I will call to order this meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission of the City of Trinidad. I'm Chris Smith, the chair of this commission. Thank you all for joining me. The agenda has been distributed by Georgie Clark, so if you follow along there, we begin with item 1, the roll call.
Barneshi, Delicio,
Present.
Remington,
Present.
Rogan,
I'm here.
and Smith.
Present, thank you. Item number 2, public comments or on any items not listed on the agenda. This is a reminder to anyone that may be listening to this recording asynchronously. You may submit signed comments in writing prior to the meetings. You can deliver them in person to City Hall. You can deliver them by U.S. mail, or you can fax them, or you can email them, georgie.clark@trinidad.co.gov. With that, we will move on to item 3, approval of the minutes from last meeting, September 9th, 2020. Do I hear a motion to approve these minutes?
I move to approve the minutes of September 9th meeting.
I will second that motion.
Excellent. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the minutes of the last meeting, September 9, 2020, are approved. New business, preservation plan. Georgie, I assume you've got some information for us on item 4A?
Okay, in the email with the agenda I sent out, I hope I did this, I sent out a list of different links, different cities you could check out, just so you get a feel for preservation plans. And then Commissioner Delicio asked, I believe it's Commissioner Delicio asked last meeting to put this on the agenda for y'all to discuss, and so I'll leave it up to you.
Excellent. Yeah, just to refresh everybody's memory, last meeting we talked about Plano, Texas, to an extent, and I did see those links. I'll be the first to admit I did not get a chance to do all of the research I'd like to about other communities' preservation plans. I open it up to comments.
I did read a couple. I read the Plano one, and I read Boulder and Glenwood Springs. Not entirely, but just to see the methodology involved in it. And I think it's very exciting if we can get going on doing something like that. The one for Glenwood Springs has a list of exactly how to do it. And, you know, involving community workshops and focus group meetings, and we already have the survey, which will help us get started.
Plus, we're completing the other survey, right, Georgie? The one that...
Yes, the historians are working on that right now, and I'll have a little more information in my report.
And that beautiful document you sent with all the original ones that were documented, they weren't exactly landmark, but they had quite a bit of history on that initial survey.
Yes.
So I think it's just rolling these together and trying to really put some time and effort to analyzing how we can, like Mr. Smith said, put this in our Heritage Festival and make people aware that these documents exist and are being worked on.
Yeah, I agree, and I think the development of a preservation plan, this commission will contribute to the development of that. I believe Georgie's position at the city will take partial responsibility for such a plan, and I gotta say, I am super, super excited to see the city of Trinidad is seeking a professional city planner. That's a role that we have not had filled as of late. And Georgie, I'd love your thoughts on this too, because that person, geez, by next meeting even, I would love to just have a conversation with them and say, what are the top 3 preservation plans that you see matching Trinidad? And then I would think that's a great question for each of us. What I would love to do is come up with something that we have all looked at, we all understand, and we take to city council and we have a conversation with them, or at least we present a report to them saying, we need a preservation plan that's holistic and encompassing the entire city, and here are 3 examples of that. And that work, it can't get done without acknowledging that we're going to have a new city planner. So that person, I can only imagine, will want to contribute, right?
Yes.
Yes, the city's is advertised for a planner. It'd be I don't know if you read the job description. It's a huge job description. So it's something that I really kind of talked with Mike Valentine about. I really think that's something that's missing here. And a lot of it, in my position, I handle the planning department, which involves all the applications that come through for development, the Historic Preservation Commission, the Planning and Zoning Commission, the EPA Brownfields grants. So there's a lot of things, and then just coordination with the building department. So this person, I think it's a really needed position here. And so I'm hopeful that we'll get some really good candidates. Generally, a preservation plan is something that we end up hiring historians to produce, because no one has the time to put it all together, and I certainly don't have the experience to, put that together. So it's something we will have to look at, either getting a grant for, or as Chairman mentioned, talking with City Council and get their input on it, and on getting one done. But I think I'm sorry. I think it's a really good thing to do. We have, in the planning aspect of this department, we have the comprehensive plan, which is, it was created with consultants, and it's how people of Trinidad want to see this community grow. So there were a lot of community meetings, people putting their thoughts in, and then we came up with a comprehensive plan, and everything the city does, we have to tie it back to the goals of the comprehensive plan. And a preservation plan would be a lot that way. It would provide some history for us, the historic context, and it would be a way that the city would look at historic preservation for this community. So I think it's a really good idea.
Yeah, I would love to invite that person to our next meeting, or the next meeting they're available. And by meeting, I mean join us on their computer from wherever they might be. And I would love next meeting for each of us to have identified the top 3 preservation plans. Again, I'm going to admit I have not researched this to the extent I want to. If I were to hand our new city planner 3 preservation plans from other communities saying, this looks really close to what we think Trinidad needs, I think one of those would be Plano, Texas, but I need to research more. Do any plans jump out to others?
But I really like the Glenwood Springs plan because they're about the same size as us, and they did a beautiful plan.
Excellent. Yes, you mentioned that, and I'm sorry I couldn't remember the name of the community. So Glenwood Springs, Plano, Texas, any others? This is not an exclusive list, but if this process works for everybody, if this job position was not posted on the city website, then we might conduct this conversation in a different way. But I agree, Georgie, it's a huge job description with a salary to match. And I believe a professional from elsewhere will likely want to take this on. So I'm excited about this commission collaborating with the person in that position, right?
Yes.
Yes, I think that person probably would be taking over my role here as, with the commissions. So we'll see how it all works out. But I think they have until Friday. I think tomorrow, this Friday is the last day for the applications to be submitted. And I don't have any idea if they've received any or how many they've received, but I think it's an exciting thing for Trinidad.
Yes.
Excellent. Any other thoughts on that? So it's the homework. It's feeling like homework, but if that's okay with the other commissioners, we each have a top 3 preservation plans to make mention of at our next meeting. Does that work for everybody?
Yep.
Sounds good to me.
Cool. Any other thoughts on item 4A? All right, we move on to item 5A, and that's unfinished business. The list of city-owned properties Georgie distributed last meeting, and again alongside the agenda for this meeting. And where we're at in this, we've got a landmark, a local historic landmark process. And it makes most sense for the city to lead by example and landmark some of its own properties. I do note the Fox West Theater is still not on this list.
Yes, I handwrote it on my copy and then forgot to put it on the other. So, and I would like to say that Fox Theater was built 1907 to 1908 in that time frame.
That's right. So yeah, I'm interested in hearing the other commissioners' thoughts. If we were to pick a few of these city-owned properties, which ones would they be and why, in your mind? Would anyone be surprised if I was to advocate strongly for the Fox West Theater? Probably not.
So we'll put that down as one of the top 10.
Well, I'm actually gonna say that the entire block, that is everything that the city owns in that little quadrant, City Hall, City Annex, and the Fox West Theater, it takes it from a clerical landmarking process to a ribbon-cutting historic block by the city of Trinidad. That is, we already have a historic district, we already have a creative district, and yet the city has recognized that these 3 buildings in this one city block all deserve recognition.
A good idea. I think the golf course should be one of the clubhouse. That's amazing from the
Does there happen to be a third location that's near the clubhouse and pro shop? I'm not especially familiar with that neck of the woods, so I'm just wondering if one of these happens to be nearby. Hey, my dream is you get 3 landmarks together and you do them all at once, and the odds of press and television camera, maybe an article, at least a photograph, it becomes something for us to promote. simply by landmarking, and I feel like doing them in groups of 3. That's just striking me. Maybe that's not the right number, but
I thought we were going for 13 because we had many for 13 or 12. I thought we had a dozen that was going to make an impact to do all at once, because we had tried to but identify and budget that money. It was $3,000 per building almost. We had voted on quite a while ago.
Right. Absolutely. So, and Georgie, I'm sorry, refresh my memory. This is something that we need to dig into the minutes for. I know that we talked about landmarking as many as possible all at once, and the roadblock, the only roadblock to that is the amount of funding that we have, the funding being necessary for the preparation of the historic report, right? The City Hall would love to be a landmark, but here's a few paragraphs about why it's important to Trinidad. And that is where this ends up costing money. Do I have that correct, Georgie?
Well, yes. You know, if you, I believe you all have a copy of the Carnegie application that was submitted for when we landmarked that. And that's, you know, the similar type thing that we would need to do. We do have $3,000 towards the preservation consultant services. So maybe we could just say some of them may take more time than others. So maybe we try and get $3,000 worth. You know, as many as we can with $3,000 worth. Now it's going to take her some time, you know, to go through each one and get a really nice landmark application together. And we want to really...
I'm sorry, go ahead.
We want to really encourage, you know, all the future applications to be really high quality. So we want to be sure and set a good example that way. So.
Does an application does not have to be completed by Preservation Consultant Services?
It doesn't have to. It could be completed by anyone as long as they have the time to do all the research and, you know, document their sources of information. So
this is
I
something
want to
that
try and do one on my own.
and I know enough folks that I think would, and I think that Tom Potter, who spoke at our last meeting, would be an incredible resource. And if we said, look, we're going to have 10 landmark applications for you to revise and check for clarity and check for historical accuracy, and then where would we get 10 written landmark applications? I bet I could find 10 people. I bet I could find 10 Trinidadians willing to do a rough draft, knowing that others would get a look at it. I'm trying to think outside of we're limited by our funding box, because the funding supports activities that we've got some pretty good writers in town that are working remotely, and you wouldn't even know they exist because they're here by choice and they're working remotely. To ask them to write up the history of City Hall towards the landmark application seems a really reasonable ask. I don't know what other commissioners think.
My impression is that they probably should have some qualifications in, you know, historical architecture and things of that nature. So they'll have to.
Is that required by our landmark application?
Well, yes, they have to. You know, they have to identify the context. You know, that and the significance. They have to be able to determine what the significance is.
We built the landmarking process so that a resident, someone that owns a home, might be able to apply for this. So that was my understanding of our landmark process. I'm hearing something different now, that a level of professional historian architecture needs to be included in our application.
Well, I think they need to have a general sense. You know, we wrote it up so we have an individual could write up an application, and then they would work with the consultant to make sure they have everything in there. it would, you know, we're representing the National Park Service and the Department of Interior and History Colorado. So, you know, a lot of that is knowledge beyond my capabilities, is what I'm trying to say here. And I think the program just really deserves some professional consultants involved.
I'm as big a fan of hiring out and bringing in consultants as anybody else, as a consultant myself. And I believe that our last meeting established for me, I already knew it, but Tom Potter is a historian in this town. I believe him to be knowledgeable about Trinidad to an extent where I believe he could and would participate in this process. I don't know what the Trinidad History Museum has going on. I don't know if they're fully staffed, but collaboration with that organization, which already exists here in town and works for the same betterment of the same community as us, I would love to reach out to those resources before I seek to hire a consultant from elsewhere towards the preparation of landmark applications. That's my inclination. I'd love to know the thoughts of other commissioners.
I agree with you, and I think there's a lot of that background in the survey. I believe that I could certainly write that application. I don't think you have to have a degree in history or something, unless that's required by our documents.
It is not. I'm glad to be clarifying that now.
Yeah, so I love your idea. I think the more we include the community, the better.
So I know that, well, we've got other things going on. We've got a city planner coming in within weeks, months, who knows. We've got a preservation plan that we want to tackle. What is the best time period for this? And again, I am a huge advocate for, in the writing process, a rough draft, a first draft, a second draft, and with each draft, other eyes come upon it. If a collaboration and a corporate author were to be submitting a landmark application to include the director of the Trinidad History Museum, the director of the History Room at the Carnegie Library, and a member of this commission, I think that is provides a very, very good standing for an application. So I'm thinking out loud about the time period for this. I would love to launch this in the dead of winter and ask people for writing and history project research. I'm not sure what that ask looks like right now, but I'm just thinking out loud here. I'm not sure what others think.
I like the idea of the clustering of the city hall annex, and that Box West, that we have that kind of grouping, and it's a neighborhood type entity, and we can maybe group the parks and the golf course together and try clustering groups of like type buildings. That would be like the water shop building, the power plant, some of the more maintenance related. So it might be clustering and getting people to get behind a cluster of buildings to start that landmark process. And
I agree.
And I think that would be a great way of grouping them together, not just by year, but by neighborhood where they are. I'm not sure if all the power plants and the gas maintenance shops are together, but that might be a cluster of buildings that were used for maintenance. And then the lake resort would maybe fall into the Kit Carson Bandstand, the Monument Lake, North Lake, put the golf course, pro shop, anything that's parks and sports related together. And that might be a cluster of, and we could even maybe ask for people to submit applications to write these, or to get us started on writing them. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that you're onto something. You used a word that I really like in organizing this list of city-owned properties, and that's neighborhoods. I like thinking in neighborhoods, and I'm not trying to make that word in any way part of our official anything, but why would we do these 6 and then these 6, right? And it's because we're thinking in neighborhoods. That's very, very cool. Might I propose that at our December meeting, we invite Tom Potter, director of the history room at the Carnegie Library, and invite others who may be a part of this process, and that in January we seek to do 6. That is, we seek to start the process of writing these applications and getting our friends and network to produce them. We start that in January, and we approve them in March, and we have a kind of thing in April about them, and then we begin a new round in April, something like that. Again, I'm thinking out loud, but were we to invite stakeholders and interested parties to our December meeting for the specific 20-minute discussion about how to produce a landmark application, I think that'd be really cool.
That would be cool.
Great idea.
I say Tom Potter's name enough. Any other names come to mind? As far as yeah.
Yeah, there's this lady, Colette, who writes history in the newspaper every week, I think. I forget what her last name is. She knows a lot about the history of Trinidad. And also people like Joe Terrabino, who's been writing history articles for the last 50 years and is continuously researching. I think we should invite all those kind of people.
I think this is great. I think our December meeting, what I'd actually like to do is declare our December meeting to be 5:30 to 6:30 and then host a public work session or just conversation with those that want to be a part of this. Okay, and Georgie, I'm looking to you for the logistics on that, but the Historic Preservation Commission would like to be able to speak with these stakeholders and interested parties, and we'll confirm that between now and December. But to name 2 people that are currently writing history articles, and those articles are published by our newspapers, gives me faith that these people will be able to produce these documents. Not only able to, but will be willing and happy and psyched to be asked.
Yes.
Are you asking them these to be volunteers, or are you talking about hiring them?
No, I would like to proceed. I would like to proceed with volunteers. Absolutely. It's a shame. I understand financial straits are what they are. City Council turned us down earlier this year we were going to incentivize the landmarking process for homeowners. And we didn't get the money that we were hoping to be able to do that. So with that, as the chair of this commission, I believe that we need to do our work on zero. And if City Council ends up saying thank you for doing so through volunteers, that's all the better, right?
Yep.
Okay, I guess I was going to say, or discuss this in my report later, but the City Council did approve that budget that we submitted. So that's why I said we have $3,000 for a preservation consultant service to assist with them. And then they also did approve some of the things we can't do because of COVID, but they did approve the incentive program for the $500 for the first 20 landmark sites. Now, I don't know, I assume that you're thinking of those as the individual applications, not the city-owned buildings.
Correct, of course.
And so we can discuss that, but I did want you to know that there is the money there to do the work.
Okay. Well, I think that that's great, and I wonder if there's something other than, I wonder if there's a different use for preservation consultant services. That sounds so juicy. And I wonder if we have questions that only they could answer. Because the work that $3,000 is attributed to go towards, I think that we've got consensus here on the commission that we have locals who we are interested in giving that opportunity to before we hire anyone. I can put that in writing and we can approve it at the next meeting and explain to City Council why we are not going to use that $3,000 at the moment, right? Hey, and if everything falls flat, then yeah, we'll need it. But I think that we're doing this with the highest mind possible, you know? As far as the incentives for local homeowners, absolutely, that's fantastic. And yeah, I didn't remember it being 500 at 20 of them. I remembered 100, but thank you for your diligent minutes. It's in there. I'm sure it is.
Yeah, we had asked for $10,000 for that portion.
Gotcha.
I want to give back up some historical perspective on Cosette, because for the 2 years I worked before Chris came on, we tried to get her hired to do a 48-page historical publication, and we could never come together. So she has a lot of information and she's willing to work with us, but I'm not sure as a volunteer. And at the same time, one of the last meetings before Chris came on, the Trinidad Chronicle News was willing to help us with sharing a lot of the historical articles that she had written and they had paid her for. So we need to pursue that. So that was a background for Cosette.
I think we'll find that, and I think that we can have an informational meeting for potential volunteers following or as part of our regular meeting in December. And if anybody is half interested, they could tune in and get a full explanation as to what our ask would be. And between now and then, yeah, think of good names that might come to mind. And if Cosette says, gee, I would love to do it, but I can't write you 3 paragraphs without a couple $100, so be it, right? And I don't know that about this community, so this will be, call it research, right? We'll find out the level of volunteers as far as writing goes. Would the Chronicle News donate their professional writing towards the production of a landmark application or two? I would imagine so. Yeah, so I think this is a good plan.
Yes.
I agree. Let's move on with it. I agree with that December idea and riding through the winter. I think we should have incentives for people that even get a group that would sponsor a neighborhood. That would include more of the private homes and private businesses that might cooperate together.
Well, let's imagine the best, and Joe Tarabino really takes to this task, and he and Tom Potter hit it off, and suddenly maybe they want to take on a strip of Colorado Avenue, right? And by they, I mean Joe Tarabino and landowners, who knows, right? But I see us putting the task out there and saying, can we get 6 people to write 6 of these, knowing they'll be revised, and then have that team ready to do another round? That might be really cool collaboration.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Joe is right now. He's working on where the Coal Miners Museum is.
Nice.
Hitting up something, and he's on one of the library boards, so he and Tom know each other pretty well.
Oh, there we go. There we go. Any other thoughts on this agenda item? All right, so next meeting, please do bring any names that come to mind, folks that might be interested. We'll go from there. We are at item 6, that is the chairman's report. I would like to report that the Fox West Theater is getting all kinds of attention. And you can find out more at foxwesttheater.com, also at the Facebook page associated with Fox West Theater. Posts are getting thousands of views, not dozens and not hundreds, but thousands of views. I've long suspected that the theater would gain national and international attention. So what do you know? It has. It's absolutely unique. The video production, the video series will start premiering at the end of October, and that's very exciting. What else is in my report? Tomorrow night there is a public meeting regarding the EPA and abatement at the Fox West Theater. It's being held via GoToMeeting, 5:30 p.m. Georgie, did I get the details right?
Yes. It's a community meeting that's part of the requirement for the application for Environmental Protection Agency cleanup grant. We're really hoping we'll get it. This is part of the application process, and so we're holding the company meeting virtually, or the community meeting virtual tomorrow. If you need like the information, it'll be GoToMeeting. So if you would like it, I can send that out to you.
If you would, Georgie, just please send it to the whole board. I'd love everybody to have the opportunity. It's one of those it's gotta happen type public meetings as we go for the pile of money and da-da-da. But it's important that community support is there. And I'm not going to name names, but I will say thank you to all commissioners that have supported the Fox West Theater recently. And there's more than one of you on the line. And that's in different roles, and I really, really appreciate the support. The last thing I will mention in my report is I spoke 2 weeks ago now at the invitation of Commissioner Remington to the Rotary Club, and I gave a presentation that was not exactly on topic, and that was intentional. You might think I was going to talk about the Fox West Theater or the economic benefits of historic preservation, but to what extent might we be preaching to the crowd here in Trinidad, where everybody has heard that stuff before? So I brought examples of massive theaters like the Fox West in other communities. And I talked about successes and failures. One got knocked down, one's sitting there empty, one's trying their best. So just in general, folks, we can learn so much from other communities. As I look at preservation plans in the coming month, besides Plano, Texas, I'm excited to learn more, especially Glenwood Springs. Thank you for mentioning that again. So
Yes.
that ends my report. We move on to commissioners' reports. Item 7.
I don't have anything tonight.
Me neither.
Cool, cool. Last call. Item number 8, Planning Administrator's Report.
Okay. Well, I spoke about this a little bit before, but the budget. So, as a reminder, I'll let you know what was on the list. We had asked for $6,000 for the Colorado Preservation Inc. Saving Places Conference that is normally held the end of January. Although the registration is usually in the fall, so I have no idea whether that'll be taking place or if it'll be a virtual situation. But we
It will be virtual. It will be virtual this year.
Okay, so it might be a lot less than that amount as well. We had asked for $3,000 for the preservation consultant service. We had asked for we needed to hold a community meeting for the survey plan, and we had budgeted $1,000 for that. so we won't need the refreshments of the venue, anything that way. We will be holding a community meeting virtual before long here. Then there was the incentive program. The first 20 landmark sites, $500 each, so that was a total of $10,000. We had talked about digitizing the Corazon Trinidad Historic Buildings Survey, and I talked to the consultants who did that. It was done such a long time ago, it's not really set up to just be digitized. I don't understand all the technology of those type things, but they said that that would be very, very difficult to do. It'd be almost as easy just to scan each document that way. But we had put 10,000 towards that. The Preservation Festival, we had put 3,000 towards, and then we had talked about developing a resource list of skilled restoration contractors at $1,500. So those things City Council did approve. And so, you know, the things we could do like COVID, we've got the money for. And then the next item I wanted to talk to you about was the survey plan. I received some information, you know, they're supplying information to me as they go along, and the one I got recently is quite extensive. So I'm going to email that out to you for, you know, your own personal viewing of it and getting a sense of it. Eventually we'll have, you know, the final community meeting where we reveal the whole survey plan to the community, but I'll be sending that out to you. So this information was regarding prior historic designations in Trinidad, previous surveys that were done, and then some additional information for you. So I think you'll find it interesting. And then the next step is we're going to need to set up a community meeting with the consultants and plan for that. So that's moving along.
I have one question about that digitizing. Is there a way we could talk to the consultants? Because that was done in 2000. I mean, I don't understand what can't be digitized. And
Yeah,
why they can't.
I'm really struck by that. With a $10,000 budget, I mean, even if it's typewritten, and that's the only physical document, for 10 grand, it could be an encyclopedia size, and you could still get it digitized.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and you're free to talk with the consultants about it. It was
Can we
the
get their
matter
name and number right here?
together, is my understanding.
Can you put it in
the
the?
name and number of the consultants, please?
Sure. I sure will.
It may be a copyright issue too. I don't know if that's the case, but we could.
Well, what we're talking about is the building survey that was commissioned by the city of Trinidad. And therefore, it would be my guess that the city of Trinidad would own it.
Right.
And therefore, it's a public resource, like the recording of this meeting. It cannot be withheld.
They did not say anything about copyright. They just said because of the way that they gathered the information and put it together, that it would be very, very difficult to digitize it. But you're
Georgie,
free
could
to
you
talk
please...
with them, Commissioner Delicio. Maybe you understand all that better than I do.
Ron at Cedar
I'd rather go with Donna. I'd rather go with Mr. Smith to talk to them if he wants me to.
Yeah, I please do. I know Ron at Cedar Street Printing here in Trinidad does bulk digitization. He's got large-scale scanners. I would be shocked. Could you please, Georgie, when you send out the contact info for the consultant, name and number, can you give us a page count or even a volume count? I know that we're talking about a couple dozen books, a couple hundred books. I'm not really sure.
Hold on just a second. I'll show you one. There's 9 ring binders this size. Each page, or each little thing here has numerous documents inside of it.
Your video's not on, George.
Oh, I'm
But I
sorry.
appreciate the effort. It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, there?
Yeah, I can see it. I can see it.
Okay, so,
I'm not sure.
just even trying to get count of this, I don't have the time to do that right now. I'm
Sure.
sorry, but I just really
No,
don't.
it's all good. But it's 9 ring binders.
9 ring binders, and the library has a complete copy as well. So anybody has the opportunity to go in and look at these.
I picked up some chicken.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And yes, send me the contact info. I will follow up on that one. I want to think about the $1,000 budget for the community meeting, and I'm just thinking if January is a good time for us to look ahead and plan to do that community meeting, even if it means go-to meeting, but to execute that in January for 2 purposes. One, for the consultants to be better informed regarding the survey, and 2, for whatever folks join us that seek to volunteer in December, Tom Potter, Joe Tarabino, Cosette, etc. One of those folks represent and speak about the process that we're going through regarding landmarking. At that same community meeting, we announced the incentives, $500 for the first 20 property owners to seek landmark status, to seek and receive landmark status. I think that those 3 purposes, I thought there was 2, there's actually 3. Those 3 purposes make January, to me, a really good time to have a community meeting.
Chairman, from a staff perspective, the consultant is, trying to meet this timeline for the whole survey project, and I think those things need to be separate. So we need to work with their time frame on the survey plan community meeting, and then have a separate community meeting for other things you want to discuss. I think they need to remain separate.
I understand. What is their timetable to produce the survey?
The email I got today said we needed to arrange for that shortly here, so I haven't had a chance to discuss with them, but that is coming up. So I think
see if January works, if you would, and I certainly give them January, and we can do our own thing later in January or February. Or wouldn't it be wild if the community of Trinidad heard from the Historic Preservation Commission twice in the same month, both times inviting you to different meetings for different purposes? I'm down.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'll let you know as soon as I talk with the consultant what time frame they're thinking of. I got the impression it would be before January that he wanted to do that.
One in November, December, one in January. I like 2 months in a row would be good. You get out some press.
Well, I given that they're a consultant firm, yes, I look forward to understanding better what they seek to do and when they seek to do it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Georgie, for all of this budget info. It is awesome to live in a community that has this kind of money. And I know the logistics behind digitizing 9 ring binders seems insurmountable, but that there would be $10,000 and that the city council would see it as useful, and that money would be well spent. I am very, very proud to be in Trinidad, and so glad to hear this budget's been approved.
And that's everything that I had in my report tonight, Chairman.
Thank you. I'm going to open it up. Last call for any thoughts, comments, questions, or concerns. Hearing none, I will entertain motions for adjournment.
I move to adjourn.
Seconded.
Okay. Thanks,
All
Jen.
in favor?
Bye.
Aye. Hey, thank you again, all. Another great meeting.
Everybody. Thank you.
Take care.
Okay.
Good night.